Hey everyone, it's Types, and today we're talking about Pokemon TCG Pocket. Pokemon TCG Pocket is coming out very soon at the time of releasing this video. In fact, it might already be out, I'm not sure. At the time of recording, it's not out though. Pokemon TCG Pocket was soft launched in New Zealand, and it was a little weird the way they chose to soft launch it, and has certainly been a little bit messy, but whatever, it's just a soft launch. It's essentially like a beta, and we will see what the game looks like once it's out, because it's releasing, I believe, October 30th. I did see October 31st somewhere, and I don't know what time it's releasing there, and in what time zones. But oh, and then there's this limited demo thing as well, but that wasn't really much for anything. So Pokemon TCG Pocket is, if you don't know, it's a mobile game that's the Pokemon TCG with some changes to the gameplay that are, they are mostly relatively minor changes to the gameplay. It's the Pokemon TCG. Some people are saying like it's not the Pokemon TCG. It's a little bit different, but it is the Pokemon TCG. I mean, it says it right here. It's the Pokemon TCG, but it's meant to be faster, and this is the biggest thing that I expect to have an impact on Pokemon TCG Pocket, at least in terms of the gameplay experience, and that is the speed of the game. In terms of the gameplay experience and the popularity of the gameplay, the game needs to be simple enough for people to be able to jump into, and Pokemon has simplified the cards, which we'll be talking about, but it's not like that's that big of a deal. Like Pokemon TCG, if you just kind of do what the cards say that they should do in the regular Pokemon TCG, even if you are a new player, you can, kind of figure out your way around decks for the most part. And in essentially an online client like this, then it will do the things for you. So if you're unsure of something, you can just play it and see what it does. It's not like you're going to accidentally like break the rules by playing a card. No, it won't let you play the card if you can't play it. It won't let you do the wrong thing for the card. So more complicated cards can confuse players, but the game will still be, playable by them. But the time needs to be short, and I don't know how much time you have for games. I've heard that it's a lot of time, which is a bit of an issue, but the games shouldn't take that long. The games really need to be taking they always need to be less than 5 minutes, certainly, because when you're playing a mobile game, there are some different times, and you might be playing a bunch of games in a row, but ultimately it could be, say, using the bathroom or going to somewhere, and you have 5 minutes, but you might have less than 5 minutes. You might have more than 5 minutes, and you can play multiple games. It also needs to not take too much of your attention, because if you're like going somewhere, say walking somewhere, or like on the train or something like that, I guess, then you need to be, paying attention to other things as well. So that is partially why the game being simpler is important. It needs to be simple to capture a larger audience, but it needs to be simple to, even if you're looking at the same audience, it needs to be just a little bit simpler. Ultimately, though, the time is a big issue, and being simple and being faster, two things that go very well together, because if you have too much stuff to think about, you'll find yourself running out of time, or the games just go too long. In terms of the time of game, I feel like it should be pretty consistent as well, or in terms of, in order for Pocket to be an enjoyable experience, it should be pretty consistent time. You should know how much time you're going to be playing when you start a game. In Pokemon TCG Live, you can concede, your opponents concede, people concede a lot on Pokemon TCG Live, and so a game could be a minute, it could be half an hour, and that's a big difference. Realistically, it's like not going to be quite that long or short, but Pocket, you need the game to be within like the minimum and maximum that you can reasonably expect to be within like a 2 minute range. Like 3 to 5, maybe 2 to 4 minutes could be a bit of a better window. The games have longer turns because of the Pokemon, or not longer turns. They have more turns, shorter turns that there's more of them because of Pokemon. Like if I just pull up a Pokemon, then you have something like, I mean, you can look at pretty much any Pokemon on the screen, and they're not taking one shots on Pokemon like themselves, right? Versus in standard format, all sorts of Pokemon are taking one shots on each other, and at the very least 2 shots, unless there's something really weird like some type of control deck or pseudo control deck, or I don't know. Like some other weird things can happen as well. Maybe you're like lost on you're like three-shotting the Charizard EX with Kramer, but that's not really your goal either. So, Pokemon and Pokemon TCG Pocket are doing less damage relative to HP, which is how you should generally measure stats. The Pokemon are objectively weaker if they were pitted against each other. The regular standard cards would win, but the cards in Pocket have, you could say, higher HP. The HP values are literally lower, but compared to the damage outputs, it's higher percentage-wise. So that's something to consider, which is kind of interesting because if the games had been short, like the regular Pokemon TCG in terms of turn lengths, that's just a way to speed up the game, or at least like keep it fast. You speed up the turns, but there are less turns, or the same amount of turns, less than there are, I believe, in the game for now. I by the way, I haven't played the game yet. It's not out yet. It's only out in New Zealand, and I'm in the US. So I'll learn more about it once I get my hands on it and start playing some games. I'm really excited to play the game as well. We'll definitely be playing it a bunch, but the time is just a massive issue. And then the cards, which I'll just talk about now, they need to be interesting to some degree because right now the cards are pretty boring. In terms of like a normal Pokemon TCG like standard card, we'll just take a look at some new reveals, I guess. I don't actually know what we have here, but we have the 18 EX starters. Some of these are boring. A lot of these are considered boring, but even a lot of these, they have, like, just look at the EXs, they have text on all of them, all their attacks, right? We got this on Tapu Koko EX here. We got this on Alchemy EX here. And looking at EXs, you generally do have stuff like that, but they're relatively straightforward. And the these Pokemon that I'm looking at here are generally considered very basic and simple cards. So these cards are generally pretty basic, and they don't involve too many decisions during your turn in terms of like abilities, right? In standard format, you're using lots of abilities and playing lots of trainer cards, items, and then maybe some supporters, tools, stadiums. I mean, not like a bunch of supporters. You're playing one, but you're playing one and you're making some decisions and you're deciding which one to play. Versus in Pocket, you do have the decision about supporters, and I'm really interested in seeing how important supporters are to the game and how they play differently than the regular Pokemon TCG. But yeah, and same thing with items, but with the Pocket, the Pokemon themselves, there aren't really decisions to be made with their attacks or abilities. Vileplume just says your opponent's active is now asleep. No choice from you. There are some coin flips. There are a bunch of coin flips. Personally, I'm not a big fan of coin flips due to the random element. However, if you are attacking more times, even within a single game, but certainly within a certain time frame, then flipping lots of coins, things will even out. I think this will make the game feel a lot better if you're playing something focused on in like a deck with a serious amount of randomness, because losing repeatedly due to randomness feels bad, but you're not going to lose, 30 coin flips in a row. But in Pokemon DC Live, you could lose 10 in a row, and that could span over 5 games if you're flipping 2 coins every game, and that feels really rough. Pocket, you're flipping way more coins if you're playing a deck with coin flip elements to it, so it won't feel as bad. There are a few cards that I don't love the design of, specifically the Misty Supporter, which is like one of the main forms of energy acceleration, because there just aren't very many, and it does coin flip, flip coin until you get tails, and it accelerates energy for each heads. So getting multiple heads is a really big deal, but overall, I feel like the cards are designed pretty well and pretty, fun, like fairly and fun. But then there's one issue from what I've heard, and a lot of people are saying that Pokemon EXs are like really good, and that could be an issue because they're hard to obtain in terms of cost. This is the biggest issue with the game, is the cost, or what could be the biggest issue. I think the time issue could be bad if Pokemon just kind of doesn't really care about it, but it is an issue which they could fix relatively easily as well. They could just say like, okay, we're going to shorten games here. And so they are just straight up doing that. And if they find the games are going too long, they'll just shorten them, and pretty much everyone will be fine with that. But then we have the in-game currency, which, by the way, surely spending $100 should be more cost efficient than spending $1 to encourage people to spend, more money, which like would make a lot of sense, but it doesn't. Maybe it does for some like weird reason, but just doing the math here, it's not, which is kind of strange. But anyways, you can purchase Pokegold, which is just purchasing cards essentially. And you can purchase a lot more cards than you can open and get automatically. That is definitely a bit of an issue because, or theoretically could be a bit of an issue if players playing free to play are now paired against players who are spending a lot of money. And if you're playing free, then you don't have a chance. And that could be a pretty big um, issue. So we'll see exactly how this is going to work if new players are. I mean, we'll all be new players when the game actually releases, but when new players are joining in from, just in general, this isn't related necessarily just to cost, but if you're just a new player, all of a sudden you're playing against these players who have spent lots of money, then it's going to feel really bad. If you're a veteran player and all of a sudden you're playing against new players spending lots of money and just losing to them despite, playing longer and being better as well, if the big issue of pay to win is that you're losing to someone who obviously there's you shouldn't always be beating people that you're better than. Pokemon does have an element of randomness, which does make it fun. If you always knew who was going to win every game, it wouldn't be fun. But ultimately, if you're consistently losing despite having more time in the game, skill of the game, and on the other hand, if you're just paying and winning and then getting essentially rewarded for that, like spending absurd amounts of money. I do understand Pokemon wants to make money, and I understand they have to make money. However, this is kind of weird because Pocket is both a collector's and a player's game, but ultimately, Pokemon doesn't have to make it pay to win, as they can make it just a game where you can spend money for collectors at like attributes like I don't know, like Shine Dust or something. There's something like that, and the alternate arts and things like that. So there's a lot of options for Pokemon to not make the game pay to win. However, they might, because that's easy to do, and you can make them some money. It'll make them a little bit extra money, and they can do that. So hopefully they are careful about that and don't make the game pay to win. That's one of the biggest complaints, if not the biggest complaint I've heard, or speculative complaint, something that could be an issue, is the pay to win element. And also for free players, can you actually like get cards, or even for paid players, can you actually get the cards because you're just opening packs? This is actually a bit of an issue, which I do think is a pretty big issue, that you can't play the game in the Netherlands and Belgium because of the like laws. I don't know many details about it, but I don't know, maybe that's a discussion for another video. I really don't know many details about it, but this is a sign that Pokemon might be doing some stuff that isn't going to be great for actually getting cards for free or at all, because if you just keep opening cards, you never get the cards you want. That's an issue. There are pack points which will allow you to buy like craft cards, but for example, if you want to craft, just if you're only crafting Pokemon EXs, you're not crafting any other cards, which are going to be this 4, what is it? I think it's the 4 diamond rarity. I don't actually remember. Let's pull up an EX here. Yeah, the 4 diamond rarity. That will, I believe, take you like a month to get. Maybe it's less than that, but it's a lot. You get 5 pack points for every booster pack you open. It'll take you quite a while, right? You need to open 100 packs, which is a lot of packs. So, pack points are going to, I believe it's around a month to get that number of packs, and that's not really something that you can rely on too much. So pack points are something to kind of smooth out things and remove the element of randomness. If you are like unable to pull a certain card for a long time. However, if you have really bad pack opening luck, you won't be able to get cards you need for your decks, and pack points won't be able to smooth that over much unless you've opened just so many packs. But that's a lot of packs. Pack points just aren't going to be getting you a lot of cards. And I believe this information, I am looking at PokeBeach, I believe it is accurate. I know the information hasn't been 100% accurate about Pocket, but I believe it has been updated to this point to be accurate. And you also have the Wonder Picks as well, which is kind of cool. ultimately the wonder picks are another way to get greater odds to get the cards you want, and so that's that's pretty cool. We'll see what exactly how exactly the wonder picks work as well. I'm excited for that. That's something that'll be cool. And the economy is like kind of complicated. There are a bunch of different currencies, which is kind of weird. That's kind of weird. It makes it feel like a cheap mobile game, which is pretty unfortunate in that regard. Like they don't need all these currencies, but yeah, like especially one of the currencies there's pack hourglasses and Pokegold, which as far as I'm aware are very similar. And the one is a paid currency and the one's a free currency, but they don't need to be separated into two currencies really. You could just say like earn a tiny bit of Pokegold for free and then just mostly be able to buy it and then remove pack hourglasses entirely. Ultimately, I feel like they could have done something like that. I don't know exactly the reasoning why mobile games tend to have a lot of currencies. I'm sure there's some like reasoning behind it, but ultimately it does make the game feel a little cheaper. There are also missions which are cool. This will get people playing in the game. This is something that might end up being important. We'll see exactly about the rewards for them, but overall they are something that is looking pretty good. And then there is, of course, the battle mechanics, which aren't here. It doesn't look like the battle mechanics, though, are a little bit different. As I said in the Pokemon TCG, they are simplified. Looking at the cards, they have done some really cool things. They have changed the weakness from ×2 to just +20 to make decks feel more, or matchups, I should say, feel more fair. And I guess like decks, so that's kind of the same thing. So this is something that's a really welcome change because weakness in the standard Pokemon TCG is felt pretty bad. One issue is though weakness, it's a fun thing to play around with, and there is no resistance as well, which is completely fine by me because resistance was a really, really like underwhelming in the Pokemon TCG normally. So just removing it is certainly fine. And so being able to play around with the weakness is fun, but also you can't really play multiple different types super well, I don't think, because your energy is like random. You can use tech Pokemon that use colorless attacks, I'm pretty sure, like say this Whimsicott or this Cottony, but it's not super interesting. There are only a few cards that can make that somewhat interesting, but mostly it just kind of a whole lot of nothing, unfortunately. But there are some cool card designs as well. I did say earlier that there are a lot of card designs that aren't super great, but there are some that are fun, and there are some that are fine as well. There is some control-y cards, but I don't think they're like super good, especially with harder and less consistent setup of these cards, like the Gengar and Gengar EX, which support a lock, as well as the Psyduck. I wonder how good evolution Pokemon will be, specifically stage 2s without rare candy, as well as stage 1s. There are some stage 2s that look really good with cool abilities like Gardevoir and with Greninja, which are cool. Ultimately, a card like Greninja shouldn't necessarily have to go within water decks, but because of the way that Pokemon TCG Pocket works, you will end up getting water energies with the Greninja Pokemon. I don't know if I said Greninja EX, but the regular Greninja, you will be playing water energy. That's just how the game works. You will have to play that, and that might just not be what you're looking for at all. One like minor complaint, I've said this before, is the inclusion of fossil Pokemon, which is kind of weird. Like I kind of know it's here because they've been there for a while, but also they're a confusing aspect of the Pokemon TCG, and they're still a confusing aspect because they're like these Pokemon that are items or items that are Pokemon or whatever, but ultimately it's not that big of an issue. Speaking of issues, an issue that they kind of removed, I mentioned the weakness change. There's also the removal of prize cards, which is pretty nice, and replaced with just points because prizing certain things feels bad. Admittedly, the prize card, the reason it felt bad was because of the amount of deck search. There is no deck search in Pokemon TCG Pocket, so I don't know if that exactly matters. And then you also have the removal of damage counters, and that you just do damage. For example, the Greninja, if it was in the regular Pokemon TCG, it would place 2 damage counters on one of your opponent's Pokemon, but now it does 20 damage, which just makes more sense and it's less complicated. Definitely something that could be nice in the regular Pokemon TCG. There are a lot of interesting things to talk about with card design. I've talked about them before some. Overall, though, Pokemon just needs to make sure they can do the right things with the gameplay working as it should, the collection aspect being fun. They also do need to make new cards at some point. We'll see when they decide to do that. I feel like a new set every month could be pretty nice. Certainly, sticking with Pokemon TCG's regular schedule of a set every 3 months, but I guess a little more than that because of mini sets feels fair, though I would like to see it a little bit more, and I think Pokemon will decide to do that as well because they want to make sure that players have as much access to new cards as they can, or at least can like look at new cards. I'm very excited to see new pocket cards, and I think Pokemon's going to step up the complexity of those new cards pretty quickly because the simplicity of cards has been a big talking point, and they can definitely be more complicated, as I said in the beginning. But the biggest thing is going to be the pay to win aspect of it. That could be a massive issue if the game's very pay to win and it just feels unfun to the majority of the player base. Pokemon will be making money, but if people just hate the game mostly, then that's not good. So we'll see. Hopefully, Pocket. It's not like spending money is on the game is bad, but also it should be a game that's accessible to everyone. And so that includes the cost issue, right? So it doesn't mean everyone can just get all the cards for free, but it means you should be able to actually play the game and enjoy the game without spending money in general. So we'll see exactly where that ends up. But I'm really excited for Pokemon TCG Pocket. I'm a little nervous as well. There have been a lot of different versions of the Pokemon TCG that are like playable online, and they've all been bad. So hopefully Pocket will finally be able to break the curse and actually, be good. I'm very excited to play it, and maybe I've played it already by the time this video comes out, and maybe you have as well. But I'm really excited for it, and I hope you are too. And as always, I'm excited to see you in the next video. Make sure to like, subscribe, hit the bell, all that good stuff. See you next time.